Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I think everyone should be seeing Cyber Recruiter.
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. All right, so this is the homepage of my Cyber Recruiter. And so there have been some sort of frequently asked questions or common errors and issues. And so I hope not to take up too much time today. And so that's on the agenda, is just to cover some Cyber Recruiter common issues, errors. I want to thank everyone for being patient with us as we're becoming more accustomed to this and as procedures change day to day. So I hope that the daily procedures guide has been somewhat helpful. And so you'll probably notice up at the very top that we've added current projects up there. That will be updated again today. But it is an evolving or a living document. So it is evolving every day, and we're trying to tweak the procedures as needed to try to make them as efficient and effective as possible for all parties involved. So that may not necessarily be the most efficient for process for one person, but I try to remind everyone that this has to be the most efficient process for the organization or procedure for the organization. So so thank you for bearing that in mind. Okay, so do feel free to let me know if there are any questions that you have or any common errors or issues that you're encountering that you want us to address today. Brenda Nava should be on this Zoom session as well. And if I know she uses Cyber Recruiter more on a day-to-day basis, so I do have her in here as my backup co-presenter in case there's anything that that she deals with and a question that she can answer that I can't. So I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the more common issues that I've had to deal with. I know I've gone on individual like Zoom or individual Google Meet sessions with folks or phone calls. And so after a while, I thought, you know what, let's just have a quick meeting and kind of cover some of these common issues. So I'm going to cover just a few of them. So the first one being that when you, sorry, my computer's being weird, guys. I'm clicking on stuff and nothing's happening. Let me refresh. There we go. Okay. So when you go and when you create a requisition, you all are creating requisitions from templates. And so one of the common errors that I've noticed is that that we need to get cleaned up or fixed, because I think it would be easier for you, not necessarily for me, or for recruitment would be, but I think all around would be if we have requisitions with codes that look more like this one. So one of the procedures that we changed is that the system will auto-generate the requisition code. And what it's doing is it's auto-generating that code based on the year that it was created, the month it was created, the site for which it's for, such as Charlie in this example, and then the funding code or program code that was selected at the time that the requisition was created. So during that program dropdown, there's a program dropdown that comes up at the very first screen when you're first creating that requisition. So I need you all to select ACES or 21st 0A or 21st 2A and not Aspire. Aspire would only be used in the very rare circumstances where it's, let's say it's a dual funded position or a generic Aspire position or a generic Kids Play position, for example. But you should be selecting the specific funding source that requisition is coming from, okay? So this one, this Cherry Lee ACES, that's a good example. And I know I've seen some that have come across that said the site name and then they said like 21st CCLC 0A. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're selecting requisition codes that are more specific and I'll show you why in a little bit, but basically it just makes the selection of a requisition for your staff a whole lot easier if you know what you're trying to assign them to, right? So I know I've seen some errors here and there where it just says Aspire, and when you're selecting the requisition from that dropdown, you're not really sure what requisition this is. So I want to make sure, at least for our K-8 sites, that you all are doing that. For prep, it's just always prep. You have a single funding source, right? Okay, so that was one thing. The one question that I got is that I think some of you had questions about creating a requisition for a differential position, but that requisition, so I went over to my rec list here. How I have my requisition list set up for me here probably looks different from what your requisition list looks like. And so one thing I wanted to show you is that to help you organize your list is probably a lot shorter and a lot more manageable. As you can see for us, because we're looking at the requisitions across the organization, we're supervisors and other folks and admin staff are handling a lot more requisitions. But I did want to show you that you, under your preferences, you can set up what that rec list looks like. So if you go to home, you go to my preferences, then in here, you can set up what Cyber Recruiter looks like so that it's easier for you. Whether it's your applicant search, I have it as forever because then I don't require as many clicks. I hope everybody has their email signature set up, because if you're ever sending any communiques out of Cyber Recruiter, they're going to show up blank if you're trying to send an email or routing to anybody or anything like that. So you want to make sure that's set up. What your inbox looks like, you have a variety of choices. So almost every applicant field is in here. So if you want to set that up in a particular way, that's good for you, then do that. But for me, this is how I have the requisition list set up, and so that I can be aware of what my differential positions are and which ones are not differential, so that I know at a glance, this is how I set mine up, okay? I think I emailed, supervisors, did I email you guys the screenshot of this? I thought that I had, but anyway, if anybody needs a screenshot, or if you just want to kind of jot down, but this is how I set mine up, so that when I go over to my requisition list, so my column 2, I replace that with my differential miscellaneous 11 field. So then when I go over to look at my requisition list, I can see which ones are differential positions and which ones are not by the yes, no column. Another point of information, or another common error or issue is, and this is an example right here, whoops, is with Columbia's Aspire 131. We shouldn't have negative openings. So it's really important that you all are updating the requisition. So either creating requisitions, number one, creating requisitions immediately as soon as that vacancy becomes open, and that you're not assigning staff to those requisitions until you see that that requisition has been approved. So for example, I went ahead, I clicked on that requisition from my list, and so I can see here, you see that status, that by invitation only, that's the status that it should be at. That's the approved status. After it's gone through all of the appropriate approvals, including a final review by a recruitment coordinator, this is the status that it should have. So once you see that status, then at that point, you can go ahead and start filling these requisitions with the people that are supposed to be in there, okay? Now it's really important that this requisition list you know what, let me go back really quickly. So this says it has 2 openings, but I have 3 people in here. So so that this isn't accurate. So if there are 3 people that are supposed to be filling this requisition, then this should have 3 openings. So I'm gonna just change that back because I'm not sure the particulars about this situation, but that's for site coordinators to manage. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it is extremely important for a recruitment coordinator to know what vacancies you actually have. The recruitment folks are going off of this list to see where the openings are and fill those vacancies. So openings left column. So we've got 1 vacancy at Arroyo. I hope that's accurate. You know, we have 4 vacancies at Cal High. We have 2 ACES vacancies at Cherry Lee. So this is how new people are being hired and filling those vacancies. So that's how she knows. No more Google Sheets or spreadsheets or whatever, or 50 million phone calls back and forth. This is how our recruitment team knows to fill these vacancies. So that's why it's really important that these be kept current. That way we know if we have 48 vacancies or whatever it may be. As soon as these are filled, so for example, if this Columbia one has been filled, then at that point, our recruitment coordinator is going to go and close that requisition. And it's no longer going to be an open. It'll be closed. It'll be a closed by invitation only. Okay. Another point is that this on hold status, all of last year's requisitions that we were using, you might recall, so they started with your site. So for example, it probably said like Pioneer, Prep, -YL. And so those are no longer being used. So those have an on hold status. And that's because the only reason I put it on an on hold status is so that you all can still have access to those staff. When I close them, because I no longer wanted those recs used, then I noticed that site coordinators were having difficulties transferring people because they no longer had access to them. So, so I've left those available for you all to use by leaving them on an on hold status. Now, what that did is that when you go to that requisition list, it still shows up. They still show up there at the very bottom. You'll find, you know, the Pioneer, Prep, whatever, or you'll find the Cherry Lee, ACES requisition, but those are not to be used. The ones that you should be using are the ones that you have created. All the ones that you either created last month or this month. And you should know what those requisitions are based on your own rec list, because you only have access to your requisitions. So, so I want to make sure that you, under no circumstances, are you using old requisitions. The only ones you should be using are these that you have created very recently. How are we so far? Any questions on requisition codes, what they should be numbered like, statuses, etc.? Okay. The shift, so there was a question about how do I create a shift differential position? So there isn't a template in Cyber Recruiter specifically for a shift differential position. And the reason for that is because it is a standard position. Difference is bumped up when it's being done on site, specifically during. So it's still, so in Abila, they're not going in at $18.75 or whatever that rate is. They're going in at $15 an hour. And then when they do get, when they do work those, that shift differential position, then they'll get that shift differential wage. But their standard as with an option for a shift differential wage code. So that's why we're still using a regular youth leader requisition, because their rate is still 15. So when you go in and create those requisitions, let's see, let's pick a shift differential. Okay, so this one was so when you go in and create those positions, the only way to differentiate would be on the custom fields tab. So you're still creating a regular rec for a youth leader, for a regular youth leader position. It's just that temporarily they may have a shift differential. So you would say yes, it's set to by default to no, but you would select yes, and you would specify if that's a morning shift or afternoon shift differential. We can add more fields to this as needed, but for now, that's the need that we saw, and so you can specify that way. Let's see, okay. The salary or the pay rate, that should still say 15, guys. Okay, I noticed that I've been getting some requisitions coming in, not from anyone specifically, but I did notice that there were higher pay rates that were on there, but it should still be at the $15 pay rate. It confuses payroll if we're trying to change pay rates on them. So again, it's a regular position that happens to have the option for a shift differential when needed. Training is still paid at 15. Meetings are still paid at 15. Sick time is still paid at 15. It's only when they're on site during this pandemic that they're getting that shift differential, okay? So that's how you create a requisition for a shift differential position. It's by creating a standard rec with these differences.
I had a question in regards to this rec specifically. Since it says only Columbia Aspire, can we change the actual to like a ACES or 21st, or just leave it as is at this point?
If you can change the code?
Yes.
There are very few people that have the option to change those codes. I think it's just Brenda Nava, myself, and Leslie that have, as admin, that have the option to change those codes. So yes, if you shoot us, I prefer Google Chat. I get too many emails as it is already. So for quick tasks like that, I prefer Google Chat. So you send me a chat on a quick oopsie that I can fix in 30 seconds or less, I'll do it on the spot. So send me a chat, and this should be changed to ACES.
So Sarah, do you have that info? 131.
It says 2A, I think, right here.
That's 21st. That should be 21st. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're looking at it on the rec list, that's easy. It's easy to differentiate, right? Columbia 21st 2A, because it's one of my columns on my requisition list. The issue becomes when you're actually making changes to applicants, because let's see if I can find somebody. It looks like my Chrome is acting wiggy, guys. I apologize for that. So Cyber is not gonna look how it should. But anyway, so if I went to go add a new record, for example, then this is what I'm referring to, where at the bottom, these are the ones you're not supposed to use, right? These are all the old ones, but because I have them on a hold, so you still have access to them, they're still showing up. The ones you should be using are all these lovely ones that you all have created. But see that 131? So unless you specifically wrote this code down, you're not gonna know, oh shoot, is that my ACES one or is that my 21st one? So that's why we would wanna make sure that that code is funding source specific. Yeah, just to help you in your selections, because the dropdown doesn't show what that is. Yeah, so I'm gonna cancel that. So yeah, so if you let me know, if you just shoot me a quick message, I can go ahead and just change that really, really quickly because I have a change code option.
Perfect. Will do. Another question in regards to that negative number. So the -1. Initially, this rec was created before we got the updated information that we were supposed to have 4 recs per site.
Mm.
So only 2 recs were created. That's why there was a higher number initially to start off
Mm-hmm.
with. But now we fixed it and we edit the rec for only 2 openings for that specific rec. So that means on our end, we would have to unattach one of those individuals from that rec, correct? And that would take away that -1?
Because one of these people was not supposed to be assigned to this requisition?
No, because initially we just only had 2 recs for Columbia, 1 aces and 1 21st, not two aces where one was morning and one was afternoon.
Is this requisition filled then? Like, do you not have any vacancies in this rec?
Now we shouldn't have one. Sarah, I'm not sure you're
So
able
if
to.
you don't,
No,
if
no,
you,
we don't.
so if this is if this is an example where you want to close it out at the number of filled positions you already have in that requisition. So if you don't need any more 21st 2A staff at Columbia and you have no vacancies, then this requisition shouldn't be here.
Okay.
I should only be seeing requisitions where I actually need a body placed in there. I need an applicant placed in there, either because they're being transferred from another site or because they're a new hire. So then on this Columbia one, if Sarah confirms we have no vacancies here, then we want to close that out at 3 openings.
Yeah, that is correct. We have no vacancies right now.
Okay, so then on my rec list, it's going to show as 0. I have no vacancies here, and this will prompt Brenda Nava to go ahead and close this one.
Perfect.
Yeah, so all these, so these zeros, we just need to make sure that they indeed actually are zeros. Right now we're just being a little careful about it before we close some, but that after today's meeting, that's what's going to happen. Okay. So I just want to be really clear about that, is that if the openings left is indeed 0, if this is accurate, if this second Columbia one is accurate, New Lex, if you really have no 21st vacancies, Rio Hondo, you have no more vacancies, then we're going to go ahead and just close those.
Brenda, what if that number doesn't add up? So like, for example, assigned applicants and number hired, if they don't match up, like the Columbia one, it says 8 and 2, but there's 0 vacancies, I can still close that out, correct?
If there are 0 vacancies, yes.
Okay.
So coordinators, I need you all to make sure to go in and just double check, triple check to make sure, yes, I don't need anybody. Or I do, and this is my actual openings left number. Because this is what facilitates the placement process.
I have a question, Brenda.
Yeah.
So let's say that requisition gets closed, and I know we're still dealing with school sites that we might open more pots for the school sites, but that rec gets closed. Can we always go back and open it and change the amount, or we need to recreate a new rec?
No, create a new one.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So would you recommend not closing it until we settled in? Like
No.
I know like Cortada, I might be needing more soon. I just need to change the numbers of the recs right now.
No, let's close that one and open up a new one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
That was the issue with last year. So that thought is a carryover from what we were doing last year, which was that we were using the same requisitions throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And our reports functionality in Cyber Recruiter wasn't working. We had no idea how many vacancies we actually had. So immediately, which is why I put this on the home page. This means changing statuses in real time. So that means that as soon as somebody has already been placed into that requisition and have no more openings, that requisition status gets changed immediately.
Okay.
So this requisition list should show our vacancies as they exist in real time.
Cool. And to clarify, who's closing the requisitions? Is that supervisors or recruitment team? Okay, perfect. Okay,
That's
so
Brenda Nava. Yeah, Brenda Nava will be responsible for closing these. So at the end of the day today, since everyone is now clear, at the end of the day today, she's going to go ahead and start closing these 0 vacancy spots, okay?
makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Or 0 vacancy requisitions, I should say. I need to be careful about my language. All right, let's see. The next question was, so if a staff is transferring to a different position under the same supervisor, does the supervisor route that staff back to themselves? So Roberto gets notified to make the changes in EWS. I'm not following. If they're going to a different position, then that's a different requisition. So if an applicant or employee is being moved to a different requisition, then there's no need for any kind of like special routing to occur, because they're going to be placed into another requisition, and that new requisition will contain all of the information that payroll needs to be able to make the necessary changes in EWS.
But that's still an ETR, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so
that ETR, if you follow all the steps, should notify Roberto.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow every step on the stop.
Yeah, and so the way the system is working right now is that I wonder, give me one quick second, see if I can pull up an email, that ETR email that contains the information. Okay. Let's see. So here's an example of that email. So this is what's happening currently. So this is a copy of an email that gets sent to Roberto. So I set it up so that I am getting the same email, just so that I know that the system is working properly. So, so according to this email, yesterday Angel changed the status of this applicant. And so he's now a 7B hired internal at Wilkerson for this requisition when the change was made. And here are all the details of Eduardo Ponce. So he's a youth leader at Wilkerson out of ACES. Yes, it is a differential position. And this is how he should be set up for his EWS. So if that requisition is set up accurately, then all of the necessary information is going to Roberto. If there are any doubts at all, then he can go ahead and print the requisition, or take a look at that applicant and go into CR for more specific details. But this is the information that, at least for EWS purposes, he needs, right? His Avila job code location and how he should be set up in EWS. So that's how it's working now. The issues have been that these emails are coming in sort of twofold. There's the initial email. I wonder if I can find, there are 2 emails. The first email, there's a first email where the site coordinator initiated the change. Yeah, that was an example on some, there's been some confusion. So either because the site coordinator's changing the status on the wrong requisition, or because there are 2 ETRs that come in. So I can't immediately find one, but there are 2 ETRs. So one ETR that shows up here that they have been, it's no longer a 7B hired internal. It's that the code for a inactive requisition. So Roberto is getting that first email saying site coordinator A has changed the status for this employee and they have an inactive requisition. So he gets that email. But then what was happening was that he didn't know where to place them because he wasn't getting that follow-up email that says where they were placed into with the 7B hired internal, because the applicant, their status was the applicant or employee, their status was being changed before that requisition had gone through the approval process. So the system will not send this email unless it's an approved requisition. So those changes, it's a controls thing, right? So those changes cannot happen on an unapproved requisition. So those were some of the issues that we were encountering. So I understand that we have to be flexible, that there's a lot changing every day. You know, Justino, just like you mentioned, like I could need 5 more people tomorrow out of the same requisition. And so knowing that, what we're doing is I'm going to change as of today, or before the end of the day today, I'm going to add another task into the applicant task items. So all of you, I think most of you have probably processed a termination ETR task in Cyber Recruiter, right? So especially considering all of the turnover we have, I'm sure almost all of you have done that. So what we're going to do to help facilitate the information for this process for all of these transfers that are happening is I'm going to create a task. So let's see. So for example, we had a youth, Jessica processed the termination for an employee that resigned, right? And so so what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be creating an ETR task. Let's see, Roberto sent me. Yep, can't find it. He sent me the task that he gets via email. But anyway, I'm going to be creating an ETR task in Cyber Recruiter that will look like the ETR process. And so I will be updating the project space up at the top for that guide for Cyber Recruiter. I'll be updating that. And then you'll also notice that the transfer process will change. It will look exactly like the ETR task procedure, except that this will be an ETR transfer procedure. And this will be just one more piece of information so that I can make sure that payroll is processing everybody timely and accurately, and not having to try to match up so many emails in the email inbox, right? Because we were having to match up Eduardo's hired internal with Eduardo's inactive requisition status. So this way we'll have all of the pieces, and it'll be a task in his to-do list. So it'll show, this way it'll show up for Roberto as on his to-do list as a task. So this one is a task test of an ETR for termination. And so that way he'll have the terminations and the transfers all available here. So that way, in case someone does get transferred with an unapproved requisition, if they did the task assignment, then at least we'll still be covered on the payroll end and not creating as much confusion. Does anybody have any questions on the termination process? Because that's exactly what the transfer process is going to look like. We're creating a task, we're creating, there's going to be a note in there so that he's getting the information of where they're being transferred from and where they're being transferred to. And that's
I
about
have
it.
a quick question. I was actually transferred a youth leader today
Mhm.
via Cyber Recruiter. Would you want me to hold off on doing anything further until you update the SOP?
No. I would proceed with the procedure as it exists. That way we're able to change statuses in real time. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll send everyone a message as soon as that's been updated. I just wanted to run some testing, just like I did with Joe Test over here. I just wanted to, on my to-do list, I just wanted a chance to be able to run a task test for a transfer really quickly before I notified all of you that you can go ahead and use it. The difficulty with testing is that I have to create a fake person and then give myself rights as a site coordinator to this fake person and this fake requisition in this fake job. So, but yeah, I'm done with that to be exact. Okay. Transfer question about, I'm not sure who asked that, but jump in if you have a.
I'm not sure if you're cutting off or it's on my end, Brenda. I think you're cutting off, so we're getting bits and pieces.
Well, I think it may be my internet, but I'm not able to hear your question.
No, you're back
Wait,
on. Because when you were talking, it was cut in pieces, so we were getting bits and pieces of what you were saying.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No.
I was just asking if there are any other follow-up questions regarding transferring under the same supervisor.
I have a question actually. What if we look up that applicant and they're not attached to any recs?
Wow, they should be attached to a requisition immediately
Okay.
with the information as is known. So for example, with the status date of when you think they should have had that status change. So for example, if it was someone that should have had an attached requisition, say a month ago, then you should give them a date as close as possible to when that actually happened in real time. So yeah, they should be updated. Do add a note though. So for example, let's say this employee is already properly, for some reason, still already properly set up on EWS because somehow that information got to payroll, but it's CR that is not accurate, then just add a note to that status so that to let payroll know that they're already properly set up.
Okay. Yeah, because I know part of the ETR was to change the status of the old rec before you attach a new one, but there is no old rec attached to them, so.
Yikes. Yeah, they should they should have a requisition attached to them.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened, but let's go ahead and give them and assign them at least their current requisition.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, fortunately, Abila, if they did have prior jobs before that, Abila does keep, there is a record history in Abila. It's just not as, it's literally just one line. It's not as detailed. Sure that for all are up to date. Okay. Okay, so I guess someone brought to my attention that when they're creating a requisition, to Brenda page even after and saving it. Huh. Aware of that. So site coordinator a requisition, and I'll test that out for myself and see what's going on. If it's some kind of system error, then I'll bring it to cyber recruiter support. But I'll see what's going on there. I don't recall that we set, I don't recall if we set that up to default to Brenda Nava. So
Can you repeat what the issue was? You were cutting out every other word, and I don't think we know what the issue is that we're discussing right now.
when they're creating a requisition, the secondary supervisor is defaulting to Brenda Nava on the first page, even after changing it to the program supervisor. So, and I will have to look into that. I'll test and look into that issue to see what's going on. Is there anything else regarding Cyber Recruiter? Any other common errors, issues, questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
When looking up an applicant who has multiple requisitions, when I'm trying to clean it up to just have one requisition, the correct one, it doesn't allow me to clean it up. It just stays there. It says I don't have access to it.
Is there a specific requisition you?
Actually, majority of my staff are linked to like multiple requisitions, and I'm just trying to clean it up just to say the Columbia Aces or 21st, whatever one it's supposed to be.
Oh, and these are requisitions that belong to other sites?
Yes.
It would have to be those coordinators to change it.
Copy. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why, because you only have access to, your site coordinator users are set up so that you have access to requisitions that either you have created or requisitions that have been routed to you, for applicants that have been routed to you. So if another coordinator has created those requisitions, or they're the supervisor, or even a secondary supervisor would have access as well. But unfortunately, that's not anything that you can do. So what my advice would be to route that applicant with a note specifying the request for the change that you need made.
Okay, thank you.
Brenda, just to clarify, they're not deleting any old recs, correct? They're just changing it to 7D.
Right. No,
No
don't ever
deleting.
delete any requisitions.
Like,
I hope you don't even have rights to do that. No, nobody should be deleting requisitions.
Yeah, so it's very possible if you've had somebody who's been with us for a number of years that they're going to have a long list of recs that they're attached to, but they should only have the ones that they're currently working as active. Everybody else, all of the others should say like current employee with inactive requisition. So it might not look clean on the screen, but it's accurate.
For clarity purposes, this is based off Sarah's question. Because the applicant was routed to Sarah, now the other coordinators don't have access to that individual on their CR. Does that mean that routing has to go back to the original site coordinator to change the status, or how does that work? Because I believe I don't even have access to change statuses from other sites.
Give me 1 second, my light just turned off on me. Okay, so it sounds like you probably have an applicant that has a requisition that had a supervisor and or secondary supervisor with previous employees. And that's probably why none of you can access them. So, so what we can do is if whomever has access to that person, other people will be able to access them the moment they're routed. So Will, if Sarah has access to an applicant that whose other requisitions need to be updated, then as long as they're routed to you or to other people, to other coordinators, then at that point you can access that applicant.
Yeah, but
If you run,
but I believe as a supervisor overseeing specific sites, I'm not able to change statuses to other recs. So for example, if a staff came from Clemenson, I don't have access, and it'll shoot me that message that I don't have authority to change that status of that rec.
Okay, then at that point, just go ahead and route that person to either me or Brenda Nava, and we'll clean that up. Just give us a thorough note so that we know what the change is that needs to be made.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Can it be because it was routed to the site coordinator only and it needs to be routed to supervisor too?
I think it's an issue of the requisition. So for example, it might be someone assigned to a requisition that was created by a coordinator that's no longer here, and that also had a secondary. So then at that point, none of you have access to them, and there is no other coordinator that has access that can change the status of that applicant within that requisition, because nobody exists in the organization anymore that had access to that rec. So I would have to there are two options. Either I make the change myself, or B, I go into that requisition and change the supervisor and secondary supervisor of that requisition. So for example, to go into all Clemenson requisitions that ever existed in all time, and to update the supervisor for all those Clemenson requisitions to the current Clemenson coordinator and current Clemenson supervisor. So my hunch is that that's what the issue is. So for immediate fixing purposes, I think the quickest thing to do would be to just route that so that we can just kind of clean that up really quickly. Maybe what I can do is I can look into creating a task for that, sort of a cleanup CR task. And that will help. I think that will help me if it goes onto my to-do list, and it could help Brenda Nava as well if it goes onto her to-do list. Because the routing feature is not the most useful for administration or for recruitment purposes. I think it would be or for payroll purposes either. The most useful we have found has been to just use tasks. So again, if I choose to do that, to create that procedure for a task, that would be after I finish with the testing for the applicant transfer task for that ETR. And then at that point, I can look into the cleanup applicant requisitions, attached requisitions task. So I'll let you know, and I'll update that procedure guide. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and I will type that into our notes. Okay. Are there any other questions regarding Cyber Recruiter that we can be of assistance? I'm reviewing the comments really quickly just to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was a question about approval of requisitions. Let me pull one up so that you guys can see. So the requisition process of approvals. And so it depends on whether the requisition was created accurately or not. So for example, you can see here, so this is what it looks like on our end. We're double checking the information. We're also printing the requisition and checking that all of that information is accurate, the job description, etc. And So for example, Justino's the secondary supervisor here. It gets reviewed by recruitment. So Brenda Nava takes a look at that. And then Leslie reviews it. I do a final review. And then at that point, once I hit accept, after I reviewed it and I hit accept, then at that point, it goes to a requisition list that's given, it's given a status of approved waiting to post. And awesome, that's clean, so that's good. That means Brenda Nava's been checking all of them. So because once they come here, then at that point, she gives them another review, and then she changes the status for that to a by invitation only.
I did see that that one had defaulted back to Brenda Nava instead of Justino as the supervisor.
Oh, it did?
It did, yeah.
That's weird. I'm not sure why that's happening, because I don't think that has been happening consistently. Not all of them are coming through that way.
Well, for some of them, I know the supervisors or we're going back in and changing it, because you can change it after the fact, but when it goes through initially, it doesn't. Even though, and they actually showed me that you can change it on all of the screens, hit save, and then it still comes through with Brenda Nava's name.
Okay.
Brenda, I noticed that it defaulted to whoever the recruitment coordinator was when I tested it out yesterday.
Okay. All right. So then that's got to be a system issue. So I will bring that up. I'll call their support and see if it's got to be some kind of admin setting somewhere. So I'll look into that and see. I'll add that to my to-do. Okay.
I also had a situation that I kind of noticed earlier today. So I attached the recs to 4 of my youth leaders that I currently have on site. So for 2 of them, I have them on EWS, but for the other 2, I don't. And I noticed that their recs, even though I attached it to their new ones, they don't show up on the requisitions tab under their name.
So you are reviewing your applicants, and is this what you're referring to, the requisitions?
Yes, so I see their inactive ones, but I don't see the one that I attached them to. And when I go back to the rec, it says that I had added them onto the rec, but it's not showing up on them, if that makes sense.
Huh. Okay, can you give me a name?
Yeah, so for example, Eileen Cabral.
Okay, I'll look into that situation. Eileen, is there another name I should look at?
Yes, Anthony Rodriguez.
Okay. Is it possible that those could be unapproved requisitions?
No, they were by invitation only before I added them.
Okay. Okay, and these are requisitions that you just created. It's a 20-10 or 20-09?
Yes, that's correct.
What's the rec? Do you have?
Yeah,
what site are you at, Samantha?
Potrero.
Okay, so it'd be like all right. We'll take a look at that.
One of them is EMCSD ACES 186, and then the other one is 21st.
Okay.
Those recs are probably closed because I closed them out when it said 0 vacancies.
Yeah, they are closed already. So one of them is Potrero 21st 186, and then the other one is, I believe, Potrero.
Okay, so I'll look into your staff, Sam. I think it's Brenda Nava, did you give them a closed by invitation only or a straight closed?
Closed by invitation only.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm foreseeing we're gonna have to come up with a new status or a new procedure if that's what's going on. Okay, so it sounds like the issue is that we closed the requisition. So when I last met with our cyber recruiter representative, we created that closed by invitation only to close the requisition, but also allow for access to those applicants in that requisition. So I have to check with her again to see why it's not working properly. Maybe there's some kind of, I mean, she did that for me, so that's not anything I can fix for myself, unfortunately, but I have a meeting with her set up for next week. So so I am typing that up, and okay. So it's not allowing you to view, you can see the applicant, but you can't view their requisition there?
That's correct. I could see their previous requisitions, but not the one that I added them to.
Got it. Okay. All right, and one last piece. So from looking at the chats, some of you, I think somebody had questions about where they can see where their requisition is in the approval process. So, so up here, where next to the printer icon, this drop down is very handy because that's where you can see a lot of the information available for that applicant. So if you go to approve, oh, I'm sorry, on the requisition status an applicant, but that requisition, you go to approval, it will do it. So one that hasn't been approved, it would, for example, if it's other people. So you'll know, like, for example, it's still with Leslie, or if it's, I think there's this one.
Brenda, you're cutting out a lot.
Let's do this from home. Home internet might be better than. Okay. Well, it's been an hour. If there are follow-up questions, because my internet is so spotty here, I think our best bet is if you just send a message through the chat and just send it to the group. And that way we can all get the same information. So just create a new thread for the group so that we know that that's the thread for all cyber recruiter related questions. And that way everyone benefits from getting the information about a specific question or concern that you had. And again, if there's something that you think I can fix in under a minute, I'm more than happy to assist you with that. Just shoot me a chat message, and I'll help you. I'll help you with that. I'm more than happy to do any Zoom sessions or a Google Meet or whatever it is that you might need. Don't hesitate to call me either. Okay. Unless there's anything else, I think I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up here. Thank you, and again, my apologies for the spotty internet. If we do this again, I will do this from home. Okay, have a wonderful day, guys. Shoot me a chat if you need anything. Thank you.